you guys really want the Lesson of Sands, huh? I mean, I'm not complaining, but I'm actually, at least for this Sans, I'm actually pretty surprised that not a lot of people talk about this Sans or use them in stories, which is kind of disappointing because honestly, the concept of this Sans with all 7 human souls is really cool. Arguably way more cool than just plain Ultra Sans, with the 6 human souls. Seraphim Sans and the story he's based from is by Trat Seraphim, or however you say their name. I'm just gonna call them Trat, just for simplicity's sake. The beginning of the thought, or Seraphim's first comic story, was posted 7 years ago, on December 14th of 2015. You may recognize them from the dub by Starbud Dubs, which came out September 15th of 2016, though it didn't hit the peak of its popularity till the full movie came out on September 22nd of the same year, hitting well over 13 million views, and is basically how me and a bunch of other people basically found out about this character. And the question we're going to ask today is it even still good? Let's find out. This story is honestly pretty complex if you look at it, and also kind of confusing at times, but the general plot of the story basically begins with Sans killing Frisk immediately as they leave the ruins. Yeah, great start. just imagine the player turning on Undertale for like the second time today. They'd be like, okay, I gotta beat the game, right? And they want to go meet Funny Skeleton Man. You just beat the goat. Not the goat, but just like a goat, the female goat. And immediately as you go into the Snowden, your game crashes. I'm not even kidding. In canon, the player who has like the soul snatched by Sans, literally the game just crashes. So, yeah. So after this, Sans goes to Asgore and tries to give him said, human soul. But Asgore hesitates for, somewhat reasonable reasons. Sans being, reasonably fairly peeved, decides to say, "Fuck it," and takes the souls, becoming a god, and destroying the barrier in the process. We get a good look at his form after this, and honestly, it's not bad. It doesn't feel like a design Toby would make for a potential god Sans with all 7 human souls, but on its own, it's pretty good. I like it a lot. Not sure why his arms are, very muscly, but I mean, it's cool. I'll let it slide. It looks cool. After this, Sans thinks that he can just, take the souls out of his body, so, he tries to pawn it off to Asgore, which, a bit unsurprisingly, he can't, because I don't think that's how that works. After some fighting a bit from Undyne and Toriel, yeah, she just had the motherly instinct to come here somehow. I don't know exactly how she got there so fast, but we'll let that slide. And I guess her mom senses really came in clutch. Kinda. And in the most oddest writing decision I've ever seen from this story, Undyne gets angry at Sans for doing what she was gonna do anyway, but without becoming a god. It's like, and Undyne just berates Sans for killing a kid, as if like, bro, you were gonna do the same thing. You weren't scared, but you were really willing to kill them, whether they were a kid or not. You didn't care. You didn't care. You were more focused on the goals of being freed from the underground. That's all you cared about. You didn't care if you were a kid. So why Undyne gets so angry at Sans for this is beyond me. I don't know why it's written like this, and it's very annoying. What? So when Sans does it, it's an issue? Like, what? I know why Toriel's mad. I understand why Toriel's mad, so that doesn't annoy me. That's actually in character. Why Undyne gets mad is what's really, odd. And Asgore was gonna do the same thing anyway. That annoyed me. It's one of the few instances in the story where the quality for me takes a dip. But in turn, we probably get some of the best writing this series has to offer past this point. Toriel's and Asgore's talk, in quotation marks, is honestly a really big example. The way that Asgore basically stays silent throughout the entire time Toriel's essentially, kind of guilt-tripping Asgore a bit, it is valid a bit, but I mean, if you see both sides, you can see why one can do the other, even if it's, about killing children on Asgore's end. And, it's a really good scene. I like it a lot. The guilt that is felt from Asgore, especially in drawings, is really well drawn, and I love it a lot. Another thing I will also praise is how Sans and Papyrus interact throughout their time together when they, get home. It's sad but charming how Sans still tries to, make jokes, and even Pap, instead of being angrily, comedically angry, is actually giving out a little bit of a laugh instead of, being angry. I love it so much. I love the care about the characters and how, they're done. This is probably the most accurate interpretation I've seen the canon characters be at this time. And at this point of the story, we are introduced to the 6 human souls plus Frisk and Kara. Another thing I love about the writing is how each kid is written. They are each given their own personalities and traits that, make them know who they are. Just literally just looking at how the little things are drawn on them, you can tell what their personality is going to be and how their body language is from, just how they're drawn. And it makes it even better when, when the dub comes around and gives them voices, and it works really well. This is some of the best work I've seen from Starbutt dubs in a while, working in tandem with that and giving it the extra mile of actually giving each soul or kid a different, voice or a different type of way of speaking, For Frisk specifically anyway, they are generally the nicer one, being the most sad but still the hopeful optimist that a lot of people interpret Frisk to be, which makes sense since they're more of the side of light, evil, really wanting pacifism, and that's about it. And Kara, on the opposite end, is of the spectrum where they're just a realist, a bit of a really sarcastic, and a dick. Not evil. Keyword there, not evil. They're just kind of an asshole. They are still kids in and of itself, so they just helped who they were following and just assumed that was Frisk, which in reality it was the player. So, yeah, and it really does hint, if you didn't read the lore in the the Tumblr page, if you read the comic, it basically hints at the player who was basically controlling them. And this concept is kind of ahead of its time if you think about it. The concept of us, the player, taking control of someone else who doesn't want to be, controlled, is shown in Chris in Deltarune years later down the line before Toby Fox did it himself. So it's like, that's really neat. The rest of the story is a lot, and I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't seen it, but to give it a general review, it does get really good. And we don't get many weird writing instances like we had with Undyne around the beginning of the story. Thank God. Now on the surface... Now on the surface, Seraphim doesn't seem to be all that. This guy barely has much confrontation with people at all, and if he does, he's either too strong, or he's too strong. He is a god after all, so he is the strongest of his verse, though comparing it to other verses of the multiverse the multiverse of Sans they use, is a bit tricky. Though if you take a closer look, yeah, this guy's a really big beast. Considering he has all 7 human souls, he can basically use all 6 souls' abilities, including determination, which also includes the real knife being like the strongest weapon in the game. And also in tandem having Sans's basic abilities as well, teleporting, gas blasters, bones I would assume, and yeah, and he can also mess and tinker with the game's code too. So if that can be applied to any other verse, that's very powerful. So they're definitely in the god tier range, above a lot of others. Now, are they stronger than Error? Most likely, yeah. Nightmare? Most likely, yeah. I think where they cap off at is definitely around Alpha Tail, with people like Error 404, Infected, and King Multiverse. All 3 of them definitely just low to negative Seraphim stance with relative ease. If you guys have a place where he'd be at, I'd love to know. If I'm wrong about that statement of him being weaker than most of the Alpha Tail characters, let me know. Let me know. Correct me. But yeah, that's it from me. Here's his place on the tier list. And make sure to not do drugs. And make sure to check out Madness.